And we're back. Welcome back to the Premier League Prediction Series. It is now time for Game Week 26, the first of 2 game weeks in quick succession. Game Week 27 will be coming in the midweek fixtures, so we'll have another predictions video for you on Monday. And speaking of predictions, let's just go straight to the prediction screen, because as always, I am fully transparent with you guys, and this week was an absolute shocker. 4 out of 11 in the Premier League, 2 out of 8 in the Champions League, 3 out of 8 in the Europa League, 2 out of 8 in the Conference League. But as always, this is why I remind you, my predictions are just for fun. It's the previews that are the important bit, providing you guys with as much information as possible for you guys to make your own informed decisions on what you think is going to happen based off of what I've said. So even though my outright predictions were absolutely terrible this week, I'm actually not too disappointed with any of the things that I said. There's only really 2 or 3 teams out of all the matches this week that I thought, wow, that was a real shock. So I'm still happy with what I've gone for. And as always, if you haven't done so already, please do consider dropping a like on this video if you do enjoy all of my previews and predictions. And subscribe to the channel if you are new around here with notifications turned on. We'll, of course, have my post-match reaction to Everton Manchester United on Saturday this week. And then, like I said, more predictions coming for you on Monday for Game Week 27 of the Premier League. But without any further ado, let's get straight into this predictions video. We start off with another match taking place tonight. The second week running, we have got a Friday night match in the Premier League. So fantasy football fans, don't forget to do your FPL teams before the deadline at 6 p.m. this evening. So that game is Leicester taking on Brentford in the Friday night football. And for Leicester, it's back down to 19th in the Premier League table, following Ipswich's draw at Aston Villa last week. But the crucial thing for them coming into this match is it's 5 home league defeats in a row without scoring a single goal. And they're now coming up against the Brentford team who we keep talking about their home record this season. Well, that's gone to pieces, but it's been replaced by a sudden emergence of incredible away form, which sees them now unbeaten in their last 4 away games, winning all of their last 3 away games. And let's not forget that they also beat Leicester 4-1 on Game Week 13. You can see in the bottom right of your screen that Game Week 13, I got 6 out of 10 for these predictions. So hopefully we can match that this week. For me, I just can't see anything other than a Brentford win here. In terms of injuries and suspensions, there are no fresh concerns for either of these sides from last week's fixture. And I think even Brentford have a couple of players back from injury as well. Like I say, for me, all signs point to a Brentford win. The question is, can Leicester finally break their goal-scoring streak, shall we say? Can they finally score a goal at the King Power? I'm not going to give them one. I'm going for a 2-0 victory to Brentford. On to Saturday then, and the early kickoff on Saturday is that game between Everton and Manchester United. And, well, the stats don't look good for me as a Manchester United fan. Everton are 4 wins and a draw in their last 5 Premier League matches. Manchester United are back-to-back league defeats without scoring a goal, which means that Everton have actually gone above Manchester United in the Premier League table. If you'd have said to me a couple of months ago when Sean Dyche got sacked that by the time this fixture came around, Everton would be above Manchester United, I don't know what I'd have said, but honestly, it is absolutely depressing at the moment. For Everton, they do still have Ndiaye out injured for this one, but Alcaraz came into the team last week and got himself a goal and an assist in a man-of-the-match performance away to Crystal Palace. Manchester United should have Christian Eriksen and Lenny Yoro back from their illness, but their injury concerns are still there. None of the players that picked up injuries last week, Ahmad, Mainu, Ugarte, etc., none of them expected to be back for this fixture. To be fair, Manchester United have won their last 4 games against Everton without conceding, which does include that 4-0 victory at Old Trafford earlier on in the season where Joshua Zirkzee was the star. But this is a David Moyes Everton now, not a Sean Dyche Everton. And as always, Moyes is happy to put in a result against the club that sacked him, in my opinion, far too early into his Manchester United tenure. We're struggling to score goals at the moment. Everton are still very defensively solid and starting to score goals. For me, this is an Everton win. I'm going for 2-1. Could be a 1-0, 2-0, but I still think with the chances Everton have given up in the last couple of games, United might just nick one, but not enough to stop Everton getting the win. On to the 3 o'clock kickoffs, and for West Ham, it's a trip to Arsenal, the side that have absolutely hammered them, no pun intended, the last 2 times they've played them. 5-2 and 6-0 in the last 2 meetings for Arsenal. And it is worth noting that both of those wins for Arsenal were at the London Stadium, and West Ham actually won this fixture at the Emirates 2-0 last season. But they do come into this off the back of no wins in 4, losing 3 of those 4. Meanwhile, Arsenal have won their last 3 Premier League games, which actually makes them the current top side when it comes to form, despite all of the injury problems that they have. They're joint with Everton, but Arsenal have a better goal difference in the last 5 matches. So they're still scoring really, really good goals. They're still winning football matches, and now they have the new best striker in Premier League history in Mikel Merino set to lead the line for them once again. The big news in terms of fitness is that Ben White should be fit for the Gunners. Whether or not he's going to start remains to be seen, but he should be fit to at least play some part in this match. For West Ham, there are once again doubts over Lucas Paqueta. This time it looks like he's picked up a small ankle injury, but my expectation is that Paqueta will play. No fresh other injury concerns or suspensions for either of these sides from last week's fixtures. I would expect Arsenal to keep the pressure on Liverpool here. Yes, West Ham have a relatively good record at the Emirates, but I think Arsenal, seeing Liverpool slip up twice in a week, are going to be putting the pressure on them ahead of that massive game against Manchester City. So I'm going for a 2-0 victory to Arsenal. Next up, it is Bournemouth and Wolves. And for Bournemouth, it is a chance to get into these Champions League places, because if they win here, they will be above Manchester City before City play against Liverpool. And unless City beat Liverpool, any victory for Bournemouth here will see them in the Champions League places at the end of game week 26. For Wolves, they could potentially be back in the relegation zone before a ball is even kicked here, because if Leicester get a result against Brentford in tonight's match, Wolves will be back in that relegation zone again following their defeat to Liverpool. However, it is worth noting they played really, really well at Anfield. So there is remit to say that Wolves could potentially get a result here. And let's not also forget that Wolves have not lost a single game at the Vitality in the Premier League. In all 4 of their visits, they are yet to lose a single one. The only downside is that Bournemouth did win 4-2 at Molineux earlier this season. They are scoring goals for fun. I just think with the way that Wolves are playing at the moment, I think Bournemouth will probably just have too much quality. I still think this is going to be close though. Like I said, Wolves proved themselves capable over the last couple of weeks with the performance against Villa and the performance against Liverpool. But I'm going to go for Bournemouth. I'm going to go for a 3-2 victory to the Cherries. Next up is a really awkward one to call. It's Fulham and Crystal Palace. Fulham finally ended that winless run at home by getting a 2-1 victory over Champions League chasing Nottingham Forest, which is a really good result for them. But it's worth noting that even though Crystal Palace have had back-to-back home defeats in the Premier League, they've actually had 3 2-0 away wins in a row. Literally back-to-back-to-back 2-0 away wins in the Premier League. They're playing better away from home than they are at home at the moment. And they haven't lost a single game at Craven Cottage since 2005. So we're talking 20 years since Palace lost at Fulham. They're very, very good at going to this ground. What I would say, though, is that Fulham did win at Selhurst Park back in the December fixture. Neither side have any fresh injury or suspension concerns from their fixtures last week. So I just think it's going to be one of those ones where it's going to be a moment of brilliance from one of the players on either side that's going to separate them. I could definitely see this game ending in a draw, as it has, I think, 2 of the last 3 years. But with that win over Forest last week, I just have to give this to Fulham, because in my head, they should be considered the favourites for this game after the result last week. So I'm going for the same scoreline as then, 2-1 to Fulham. But watch this space. Palace more than capable of producing another good away performance here. Speaking of good away performances, when Ipswich travelled to Tottenham, it was an incredible away performance from the Tractor Boys as they won at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. Now, Spurs travel to Ipswich to try and seek revenge. However, it's worth noting, both sides had some great results last week as well. Ipswich drawing away at Aston Villa after the controversial Axel Tuanzebe red card. I have no sympathy for someone that's already on a yellow card making a challenge like he did. He shouldn't be doing that. Yes, the first yellow card should never have been a yellow card, but why make that sort of challenge when you've already been booked? So I have no sympathy for him in that regard. For Spurs, they of course beat Manchester United. However, it was a very, very poor Manchester United. And if you look at where United are in the table, is beating Manchester United at home a really good achievement at the moment? We shall see. The good news for Spurs is obviously good performances from the like of Vicario, James Maddison as they come back to full fitness. They're starting to put together a bit of a recognisable first-team squad again. Bentancur's back in there. Danso's come in and looked pretty good as their new signing. They have a settled backline once again, and they're starting to create more chances with the players available to them. For Ipswich, no fresh concerns for them, but obviously Axel Tuanzebe is suspended following his red card last week. Leif Davis, it remains a doubt. He also didn't play last week, so he could be back for this one. That's why I said there's no fresh concerns coming into this one. I genuinely believe that this one could go either way. Both sides over the last few weeks are still conceding chances for fun. Even in the game against Manchester United, Spurs conceded several big chances that United could have done better with. And Ipswich, I mean, if it wasn't for their goalkeeper Palmer, new signing, Aston Villa would have beaten them quite comfortably last week. 10 men or 11. So I can see it being close, but with the goals starting to come back into the Tottenham team over the last couple of weeks, I'm going to go for them, and I'm going to go for a 3-1 win for Spurs. Then the final 3 o'clock game is a second South Coast derby in a row for Southampton. They lost to Bournemouth last week. Now they've got to face another fellow South Coast side in Brighton and Hove Albion. And look, Southampton, to be fair to them, showed some fight against Bournemouth. They did. They absorbed pressure. They went 2-0 down. They fought back. They got it back to 2-1. It looked like they were trying to get themselves back level. And then they succumbed to another good Bournemouth goal. And I just think that is the summary of Southampton at the moment. They are starting to play better under the new manager. They really are. They're starting to produce better performances, but the results still aren't coming. Meanwhile, for Brighton, back-to-back home victories against Chelsea, being very impressive in both of those games as well. I just think, realistically, it's their game to lose. They're playing some fantastic football. Mitoma is looking like one of the best players in the league again at the moment. It's great to see him reach the heights that he was reaching a couple of years ago before his sequence of injuries. So I just, again, think there's just too much attacking threat from Brighton. They've got the majority of their attacking players fit again. Yes, they're still missing players at the back, the likes of Estepinian, Kadioglu, Lewis Dunk is still listed as a doubt for this one as well. So I think there's a chance that Southampton can nab themselves a goal, but they're going to have to produce a level of defensive performance we've not seen from them in recent weeks to stop Brighton getting the win, especially with Harwood Bellis still missing for them at the back as well. I'm going for a 3-1 victory to Brighton. Final game on Saturday sees the late kickoff between Aston Villa and Chelsea. As we've just mentioned, it's back-to-back defeats for Chelsea against Brighton, both away from home in the FA Cup and then in the Premier League. For Aston Villa, it is back-to-back home draws. So not even that great for them, obviously drawing with Villa against 10 men and then the 2-2 draw against Liverpool. But it is the 2-2 draw against Liverpool that I'm going to focus on because they played so much better in that game than they did against Ipswich. I know there were fans in my video the other day saying that actually Villa played really well against Ipswich. They just got really unlucky. Against 10 men, I would still expect you to beat a side in the relegation zone. Against a Liverpool side with 11 men, I think that's unlucky not to get a result when they played that well. And I think against a Chelsea side that are seriously struggling at the moment, especially since the injury to Nicholas Jackson, they just look like an absolute shadow of the team they were a couple of months ago. And even though Jackson wasn't scoring that many goals, it's the all-round play, it's the pressing, it's the running in the channels, it's creating problems for the opposition. And Kunku up there isn't doing that sort of job. You can tell he's more of an attacking midfielder than he is an actual centre-forward. And without him, Chelsea are really struggling to score goals. And I think the only thing that could go in Chelsea's favour here is what we've seen from Aston Villa in the last couple of matches, is that they are still very sloppy when they're playing it round at the back, and they will concede chances. And I think that is where Chelsea have got to try and capitalise. But the form of Aston Villa's forward line at the moment, they just look so dangerous. Watkins, Marlon, Rodgers, Ramsey, Rashford, Asensio, all dipping in and out of the team, all contributing. Tielemans popping up with a goal from midfield as well the other day. There is just so much happening in that attacking line. And with Chelsea's injury concerns at the back, the like of Badiashile, Reece James is still a doubt at the moment. Some of their other players, Gusto is out. There's no settlement in Chelsea's backline at the moment. And I just think Villa are going to have too much for them. In terms of Villa, it should be noted that Axel Disasi cannot play against his parent club. So they are going to have to reshuffle their backline again. It looks like Kamara should be back from his injury, so he'll slot back in as the auxiliary centre-back. But I'm going to go for Villa here. I'd be surprised if they don't get the result. unless it is just more defensive cock-ups as they try and play out from the back. I'm going to go for 2-1 to Aston Villa. I almost went for 3-1 or 3-2, but I just think that's about right for this game, 2-1 to Aston Villa. That then takes us to Sunday, and I genuinely think this one here, the Newcastle-Nottingham Forest game, is the toughest one to call this week. There is definite grounds to say that either side could win this one comfortably because their form on both counts is just starting to wobble a little bit. Newcastle, obviously, they've won their last 3 games against Nottingham Forest. That can't be overlooked. They've won their last 3 against Forest, but all 3 have been at Nottingham Forest. They actually lost their last game at St James's Park to Nottingham Forest, thanks to former player Chris Wood coming back to them and scoring a hat-trick. And boy, how he's pushed on since that hat-trick, certainly over the course of this season. Not only that, Newcastle have lost their last 2 home games in the Premier League, but Forest have lost their last 2 away games in the Premier League. Not only that, both of these sides have just lost to the same side. They've both lost 2-1 to Fulham, but Newcastle put in a great performance against Arsenal, then got thrashed by City. Forest, as we said, lost 2-1 to Fulham after winning 7-0 after losing 5-0. So, answers on a postcard. How do you separate these 2 sides where both of their form is all over the place at the moment? Both sides are still playing good football, but I just think it's going to come down to who has it on the day. In terms of injuries and suspensions, it's expected that Livramento will come back in for Trippier. He looks like he's come over the issue that meant he didn't start against City last week. For Forest, their only concern in the entire squad is Awoniyi, who, as we know, wouldn't start ahead of Chris Wood anyway. So I can't split them. I just think, yeah, this is going to be another game like the Fulham Palace game that's going to be decided by moments. And at the moment, I don't know who's going to produce more of them. So I'm just going to go for a 1-1 draw. Again, nearly went for 2-2. Genuinely could be 0-0 the way these sides have played recently. But I can't split them. I'm going for a 1-1 draw. And then finally, the main event. And what a main event it is. Manchester City and Liverpool. And look, at the moment, it has to be said, Liverpool are starting to wobble. Draw against Everton, nearly drawing against Wolves, drawing against Aston Villa. Problem is, City are crumbling. City are absolutely crumbling. Yes, they beat Newcastle 4-0, but as we've just mentioned, that's a Newcastle side at the moment that are a little bit off it. They lost 5-1 to Arsenal, and Arsenal have no forwards. They got hammered by Manchester City. They got hammered by Real Madrid at home and managed to salvage a 3-2 defeat. Then they got hammered by Real Madrid away, and they lost 3-1. If Liverpool attack those spaces that Arsenal exploited and that Real Madrid have exploited twice, the way Liverpool play, those balls in behind to the likes of Diaz and Salah and whatnot, Man City have got no chance. They really don't. They're going to have to produce a level of defensive display that we just simply haven't seen from them in months. Like I said, yes, they beat Newcastle, but Newcastle played into City's hands. Liverpool won't do that. I really don't think Liverpool will do that. They will exploit the spaces the way that Real Madrid have just exploited the spaces. And yes, there is a chance that Erling Haaland is back. He was on the bench against Real Madrid, so clearly that knee injury wasn't as bad as people thought. Will De Bruyne come back into the team? We'll see. Pep Roulette is always up in the air. At least there's no fresh concerns other than John Stones, who looks like he's picked up another pretty bad one. But I've not seen any actual report to say that he's going to miss this game. I'm just sort of putting it out there that it looks like Stones is going to be unavailable. For Liverpool, Cody Gakpo looks like he's still going to be missing, but there is a chance he could make it potentially on the bench. Other than that, all of their fully first-team squad is available. For me, as much as I'd love to see Liverpool continue to drop points, as much as I don't like seeing Man City win, I desperately want Liverpool to not win the league. But I just don't see it happening. I know I've predicted them to win the last few games, and they've been dropping points to Everton and Aston Villa. But I look at that City defence, I look at that Liverpool attack, and I have to go for Liverpool here. I'm ending this week's predictions with a 3-1 win to Liverpool. As always, let me know your thoughts down in the comment section below. Let me know anything you think I've missed regarding things that I've not spoken about. Thank you very much for watching again. And of course, we'll be back on Monday morning for Game Week 27 with all 10 Premier League fixtures once again. I'll see you there.